Welcome to the Misty Blue podcast. I'm Misti Green. This episode is part of the Beauty for Ashes Purpose in the Pain series. This episode is about betrayal, about what happens when the very people you trust, the ones who you break bread with, who you sit at tables with, the ones who you share your dreams and your visions with, the ones who should protect you, the ones who you've cared for and tended to, what happens when those individuals turn on you? In the last episode, we discussed Leah and the ashes of rejection. In this episode, we're going to remain in the book of Genesis and anchor our time to the story of Joseph, a young man who carried a God-given dream, but who was betrayed by his brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and left to rot in prison. Joseph's life was a series of ashes, and yet God used every single betrayal, every setback, every season of loss to elevate Joseph into a position of authority where he saved nations. Joseph's story shows us that betrayal does not cancel destiny. With God, betrayal becomes the very bridge to beauty, the bridge out of your ashes. What happens when those closest to you, when they break your heart, when they break your trust? When the people you've opened your soul and your heart to betray you, when they abandon you, when they use you or misuse you? Betrayal is one of the deepest wounds we can carry. It cuts sharper than failure. It lingers far longer than rejection. It leaves an imprint on your soul because it comes from the people we least expect. That is ash. The ash of broken trust, the ash of betrayal. Joseph knew that pain, but through him, God proves that betrayal is not the end. It can be the very stage where destiny takes the spotlight. And that is the beauty. During this episode, I'm hoping that you'll be able to walk away with betrayal can break your heart, but it cannot break or dismantle your calling. That your pit is not permanent. It's preparation. And even though that is so hard to embrace, it is the reality. Your pit is not permanent. It is preparation. And that God's elevation often comes through the very places of your pain. See, Joseph's story begins in Genesis 37. He was 17 years young, full of energy, full of hope, full of innocence, and full of trust. God gave Joseph dreams of greatness, dreams of the sun and the moon and the stars bowing to him. But instead of celebration, his dreams did what? They bred jealousy. Can't share your dreams with everybody. His own brothers hated and resented him. One day when Joseph went to check on them in the fields, they saw their chance. His own brothers stripped him of the colorful coat, the symbol of his father's favor, and threw him into a pit. That is the ash of betrayal by family, the ash of being discarded by people who should have been your covering. His brothers sold him to passing traders for 20 pieces of silver. Some of you may feel like you've been sold out for less than that. They dipped his coat in the animal blood and lied to their father, saying, Joseph's dead. That is ash. The ash of being written out of your own story, out of your own family, erased by those who you trusted most. Some of you listening, you know this ash. You've experienced it. You've been betrayed in marriage. Maybe a spouse walked out. Maybe a spouse betrayed you. You've been betrayed in friendship. Someone who you confided in turned your secrets into weapons. You maybe have been betrayed at work. A colleague who you trusted, maybe they undercut you to get ahead, or they even stole your ideas and sold them off as their own. Maybe you've been betrayed by family. The very people who should have nurtured you might have caused you the deepest wounds. That is ash. The ash of betrayal doesn't just wound the heart. As I said earlier, it leaves a mark on your very soul. It shakes your identity. It makes you wonder if you can ever trust again. Joseph was then taken to Egypt and sold into Potiphar's house. Even there, God's favor was still on him. His destiny was still prevalent. He rose in responsibility. He was able to manage the entire household. But what happened? Potiphar's wife cast her eyes on him. When Joseph refused her advances, what did she do? Out of her own shame or embarrassment, her own pride, she lied and she accused Joseph of assault. Potiphar then threw Joseph into prison. That is ash, the ash of false accusation, the ash of integrity being punished, the ash of a reputation ruined or at least dismantled by lies. This is an ash many of us know too well. You've been misunderstood, judged for motives that you never even had. You've been lied about, your name tarnished in circles that you can't defend yourself in. You've been punished for doing the right thing when integrity cost you your place. That is ash. To sit in prison like Joseph, knowing you told the truth, knowing you kept your integrity, but paying for lies, that is an intense ash and one that is very hard to sit with. In prison, Joseph still interpreted dreams. One belonged to Pharaoh's cupbearer. Joseph said, "When you're restored," what did he ask? What did he ask? "Remember me." The cupbearer promised, "Yeah, I'm going to go back and I'm going to remember you." But when he got out, what did he do? He was so happy with his own place and position, he forgot about Joseph. 2 years passed. Joseph remained in prison 2 more years because of a broken commitment. That is ash. The ash of being forgotten, the ash of delayed justice, the ash of waiting in darkness, wondering if your dream died in the pit. Many of you are in this season. You've applied to jobs, sent resumes, waited for callbacks, and nothing. You feel forgotten. You've poured into relationships, but when you needed support, you got silence. Forgotten. You've been faithful in ministry, in service, in work, but overlooked, unseen, forgotten. That is ash. And it can feel like the hardest ash of all because waiting wears the soul thin. But Genesis 41 changes everything. See, Pharaoh had a dream no one could interpret. And then suddenly what happened? The cupbearer, what did he do? Now he's going to roll back to his commitment. He remembered Joseph. Joseph was then brought before Pharaoh and he interpreted the dream with clarity. 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine. Pharaoh did what? He elevated Joseph to second in command of all of Egypt. Pharaoh elevated Joseph. That is beauty. The beauty of God's timing. The beauty of what comes out of the wait. The beauty of dreams fulfilled after years of delay. The beauty of purpose birthed through pain. Joseph's leadership not only saved Egypt, it preserved the very brothers who betrayed him. When famine struck, the brothers came to buy grain and bowed before Joseph just as his dream foretold. That is beauty. The beauty of destiny fulfilled. Joseph told his brothers in Genesis 50:2, "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive." That is beauty. That is beauty of redemption, where betrayal becomes the bridge to blessing, the bridge out of your ash. See, betrayal can break your heart, but it cannot break your calling. Joseph's brothers tried to erase him. That's his ash. Their betrayal delivered him to the very place God needed him. That's the beauty. Your pit, remember when I said it's not permanent, it's preparation? Joseph's pit and prison seasons felt like final. That was his ash. Those very seasons trained him to lead nations. That's his beauty, the beauty in the wait. And God's elevation comes through your pain, betrayal, lies, attack on your character and reputation, prison, forgotten years. That's ash. But what happens? Purpose, destiny, authority, and legacy. There's the beauty. Maybe today you're in Joseph's shoes, betrayed, misunderstood, overlooked, attacked, or forgotten. Isaiah 61:3 promises he will give them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, and the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. Joseph's ashes were real. Betrayal was real. Prison was real. Being forgotten was real. It was all real. It all happened. But God's beauty was greater. And that same God is with you. Your betrayal doesn't cancel your purpose. Your pit is not permanent. And your delay, it's not denial. Joseph's life preaches this. What others meant for evil, God can turn for good. Your ashes, betrayal, lies, waiting may be the very soil where God grows your destiny. If this episode encouraged you, share it with someone walking through betrayal right now, walking through a waiting season, and remind them ashes don't end the story. With God, they are the soil of beauty.